See, an animal is what it is because it is at a state or a level of unconsciousness. In fact, everything in existence can be graded from you or one moment of consciousness. From there, everything can be graded as lesser and lesser conscious. So, only something that is aware, conscious, can ask the question about something that is unconscious. So, when you talk about animals, when you talk about plants, when you talk about earth, when you talk about heavens, it is really that conscious part of the universe that is questioning its unconscious origins. So, for a moment, if you keep the person in you aside, for a moment, if you keep the individual in you aside, if you just look at the entire universe, the stars, the sky, the galaxies, the trees, insects, birds, everything just as a process, if you keep the individual aside, you will see you need a conscious being to question, to contemplate, a being who is in a sense aware of himself. Are you understanding? So, when you ask questions about animals, you're really going into that part of your mind, the unconsciousness that has manifested itself, and you're trying to understand consciousness through unconsciousness. So, this is where you cannot draw much inspiration from the unconscious world. You can only draw inspiration from those individuals who have reached to that level of consciousness, who have not only become aware of their bodies and minds, who have become aware of themselves. So, when an individual becomes aware of himself fully, he becomes aware of everything in existence, and he sees even his own body and mind is a part of that unconscious gathering. Really, the body is not conscious, the mind is not conscious. It is still doing all the things that it has simply picked up. The body doesn't digest the food consciously. It doesn't breathe consciously. It doesn't walk consciously. Similarly, the mind doesn't think consciously. It doesn't generate thoughts consciously. Even if you were not to be questioning about the nature of your body and mind, it would still continue to perform all its functions without any difference. And this is where consciousness doesn't even change the content of the mind and the body. Consciousness illuminates the one who is behind this process, the one who is going through all these experiences, because he is the only one who matters. The one who is questioning, the one who is trying to understand. So, really, in that sense, the entire human race is unconscious. Entire human race, we live like animals. In fact, the difference between us and animals is so little. What is the difference? Just we live in a different place, we have a different context, we have different examples. But if you were to study any life in depth, you will see every life just about has the same amount of complexity, same amount of uncertainty, same amount of thinking, same amount of planning. I mean, take bees for example. I mean, in fact, their lives seem to be a lot more organized, lot more complicated, lot more thought process involved than ours, if you actually give it a thought. because they perform all those functions without a written text, without somebody giving orders and directions. They seem to coordinate their whole set of activities without a single governing force. That itself has to tell you that, okay, this is a process, it's an unconscious process. There is really no one single be that is directing this entire process. It's a hive mind. That's why we call it a hive mind. In fact, we are all a part of that hive mind. Minds are not separate, thoughts are separate, but mind is one. This is why when Mary asks Jesus, if I see you in my vision, how do I see you? Do I see you through my body, through my mind, or through my spirit? How is it that I really see you? After seeing him in her vision, she asks this question. And Jesus says, it is neither through the body nor through the spirit that you see, but you actually see through something in between those two, which is called the mind. So when you experience something, the experiencing part of you itself is mind. Are you understanding? So that mind is neither yours nor mine nor somebody's. It is a mind. So when she is seeing a vision, she is accessing that part of her mind which is a part of the collective consciousness. That is why only in those states you can experience a certain unity, and you can feel the connectivity between you and everything else. Otherwise, you are separate. There is no unity. There is no sense of belongingness. There is always this deep pain of separation. This deep pain, sometimes you cannot even express, this deep pain of being in a strange world, among strange things. And animals keep reminding us of how strange things are and how unconscious our own lives are. That's why we are somehow drawn to watching animals, birds or insects, because they are all a part of the collective consciousness, and they all remind you that how you can live, so unconsciously. You might be the light of the whole universe, you might be the consciousness that illuminates everything, and yet that ant that is crawling on the ground, it doesn't know that. So in that sense, you can draw tremendous inspiration from the animal world. The inspiration is, how you can move away from the animal nature and more towards your true nature. So when you look at an animal, what you can learn from an animal is unconsciousness. At the same time, simply going through the experiences of life moment to moment, that's it. So what you draw from an animal, what you learn from it is important. So certainly you can learn how to be in an experience fully. Animals are always 100% fully in an experience. They are never divided in an experience if you actually observe them. If they are in pain, they are in pain. If they are in joy, they are in joy. There is no thought process that disturbs the purity of their perception, purity of their experience. The only problem is they are not aware of it at all. Blue doesn't know that he exists. We know that he exists, and he doesn't even know that his name is Blue. You see, the moment there is no name, the moment he cannot identify himself with anything, the moment he cannot use language, he is simply a part of the unconscious process of life. He has no name, he has no ideas of his own, he has no identity. So really it is impossible to draw any inspiration to become awakened from organisms that don't have any identity of their own. Because without an identity, You're just a wave in the ocean, right? You need an individual who has identified himself with the body and who has transcended it. That is where the inspiration comes from. And everything you see around you reflects that unconscious origins. And in fact, everything that is happening around you has always been a part of your life. Not just this life, it has always extended. So remnants of those is what you remember as animals. Now, this might be a little difficult to understand, but then there was a point in time you must have been that animal. You must have been that tree. That is where there is some connectivity. Although you're not that now, you can still feel. That is why once you become enlightened, you will know without any doubt that there was a time you were that tree. You can actually experience that tree. Because what is that tree? It represents stillness. It represents being in one place and being alive. And that is what you are trying to experience. As of now, you are moving around. So, apart from that, there is nothing much you can really draw from the animal world. It's just observing and seeing how not to live like that, simply 100% unconscious. Otherwise, you can just learn how to be in the moment. That is what a bird teaches. That's what an insect teaches. How to just be there. That is why animals are not disturbed. I mean, they're not sitting and thinking about what to do the next moment. What will I do for my breakfast day after tomorrow? No. That thought process is not even there. One of the greatest things you can learn from animals is how life nurtures a creature that is so simple, that doesn't even know that it exists, and life nurtures it, isn't it? Because as a part of taking birth itself, naturally these mechanisms are inbuilt. It is only human beings who bring in all unnecessary concepts and ideas and submerge this natural instinctive process towards survival. We make everything into a concept, and we completely forget that we possess the ability to live, not in our thoughts, by our being. Our body knows how to survive.